It appears as if I am the last Conservative speaker on this particular privilege debate, and I think it's fitting that I be given the last opportunity. The wind sort of has been taken out of my sails in light of the unanimous consent motion that has been passed by this particular House. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to justify why this House should have passed the original motion as presented by my colleague, the member for Leeds, Granville, Thousands Islands and Rideau Lakes motion of privilege, but really to impress upon the House the importance of the supremacy of Parliament, which I think is at the heart of this debate. And I'm going to probably allow my colleagues the opportunity to ask even further questions of me and commentary beyond the 5-minute allowance. So at the heart of this particular motion is the directing partner of GC Strategies, which, notwithstanding a number of interventions from Liberal members at various committees that I have attended studying this particular issue, the ArriveCan issue that has dominated the news for close to 18 months, Madam Speaker, is whenever I rephrase the name GC Strategies, I would often be met with an opposition from the Liberal benches on a point of privilege, suggesting that I'm misleading the committee in some way, that GC does not necessarily stand for Government of Canada. And I would use that phrase, the Government of Canada Strategies, deliberately, not because I cleverly thought about that. I know that some political pundits have often used that particular phrase in some of their media interviews. I've heard some political pundits using the phrase "get cash," because it would appear as if that is essentially what GC, Government of Canada Strategies, does. But on the issue of Government of Canada, these are the words used by Kristian Firth at committee. He was asked, what does GC stand for? And he very proudly identified GC as the Government of Canada Strategies. And when you look at the bigger picture of what GC has been able to do, Government of Canada Strategies has been able to do over the course of some several years, coincidentally, since our Prime Minister took government, close to $60 million, Madam Speaker, 60 million taxpayer dollars for being nothing more than a conduit between the government, ministries, and IT professionals. Why is this important? At a time when our Prime Minister formed government in 2015, he promised transparency, he promised accountability, he promised responsible government, he promised, more importantly, to reduce the amount of external consultants. Did he live up to that promise? Did he live up to the litany of promises we've heard from that Prime Minister since 2015? Absolutely not. Because what he has done is he's exceeded the amount year after year after year on external consultants. This notwithstanding, Madam Speaker, that our Prime Minister and his government has increased the size of our professional federal public service by 40%. Now, one would have thought, and we've heard at various committees, we've heard from union heads representing that very much the professional public service, but they were never consulted. They were never asked whether or not we had federal public servants who could have performed the role that GC did, simply picking up the phone, sending an email, sending a text, and connecting government with the professionals. But no. This Liberal NDP corrupt, inept government didn't want to rely upon their professional public service. they had to hire Government of Canada Strategies, who very proudly has taken anywhere from 15 to 30% of that $60 million in government contracts. So you could appreciate, Madam Speaker, clearly the government does not, why there was such an interest in getting to the heart of this matter. Why that there's not one, there are several committees studying how this was allowed to happen. And when you have at the heart of this a smug, arrogant individual by the name of Kristian Firth, who thinks that he is in control, that he is paramount, that he can dictate the terms under which he'll respond to questions, using the whole specter of this RCMP investigation. Now, the only thing that the Canadians have been able to learn about this is a confirmation from an RCMP spokesperson that they've expanded the study following the release of the Auditor General's report. They've expanded the study to now look at the Arrive scam scandal. That does not necessarily translate into the RCMP is actively investigating the number of criminal charges, as recently identified by my colleague, the frauds, the forgeries, the government fraud, the obstruction, the deletion of emails. We don't know what it is. We don't know if they are investigating that, but it allowed Kristian Firth an opportunity to deflect, an opportunity to impede Parliament's privileges in seeking the truth as to what really transpired. If he didn't use that as an excuse, he used the excuse of solicitor-client privilege. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, in fact, I'm not going to spend any time reciting the authorities to refute that particular claim by a witness, that a solicitor-client privilege does not apply at committee. You are still compelled to answer questions. But the questions put to Mr. Firth, in our respectful opinion, Madam Speaker, would be very damning to the government, particularly in light of the glowing references on the Government of Canada Strategies website. 2 minutes? Thank you. About all the glowing accolades from senior government officials. And most recently last week, a real damning admission to this government by two professionals at KPMG, an international tax advisory consultant company with over 10,000 employees in Canada alone, Madam Speaker, gave instructions and gave direction to the committee that in terms of the work that they performed on the Arrive scam, which is just over $400,000, instead of that federal public service that the government is so proud of and talks about the pride that they have and how professional they are, and to that I agree with them, but they bypassed that and they directed that KPMG should at all times work with GC Strategies. Not the government itself, not the ministry itself, not the professionals, but to work with GC Strategies. So, in my opinion, Madam Speaker, it really gives new meaning to the whole concept of really being aligned closely, professionally and friendly with the Government of Canada and our Prime Minister and his ministers. So for all of those reasons, I know I'm running out of time. I could speak for hours on this issue. Clearly, we've impressed upon the entire House the importance of compelling Kristian Firth to this House to answer the questions that not only parliamentarians are demanding, but that Canadians deserve to know the truth of. Thank you.